Hey everyone, Token Dave over here. The dorky token black guy is just trying to get by. And welcome to another edition of AA, Adaptation Application. Here, I share my thoughts on how well an original or an already established story has been adapted into a new or an updated medium. This edition of AA is in conjunction with my MCU Phase 1 and Phase 2 franchise review. So, today I am going to talk about how well the comic book character Ironman was adapted into the 2008 movie by the same name. Alright? So, like in my other AAs, I'm going to predominantly focus on story, characters, and the theme of the story. Given that this is actually a comic book origin movie, I will also be adding on how well the origin was adapted into this movie. Alright? So, what's the story of Iron Man? Well, in the movie, the story is about Tony Stark, who is a genius billionaire playboy who has inherited a company from his father that he now owns. While conducting an overseas militarized weapons demonstration, his military escort was attacked, and during the ambush, he was severely wounded and realizes that the attack and the wound that he received were all from the same weapons that he has manufactured. Being held prisoner in a cave, Stark actually builds a weaponized armor that allows him to escape and return home. The whole kidnapping ordeal and seeing how his weapons were used has caused Tony to have a change of heart and immediately decides to take Stark Industries out of the defensive weapons industry and tries to incorporate them into a new industry that will actually benefit the whole world. This story is actually pretty accurate to the comics, actually. You frequently see Tony being dragged into or tempted to basically create new weapons to destroy things, yet he tries very hard to have his company utilize his genius and everything for other things throughout the world and all. And basically adapting this aspect of the story to the movie was done remarkably well, and as well as giving it more of an updated spin. So the story gets a pass, right? The origins of Iron Man. Now, in the comics, basically, this comic came out, his origins were basically told in Tales of Suspense issue 39, if I remember correctly, and his origins does get repeated probably once a decade. I know it definitely got repeated during the Demon in the Bottle story arc, which I have to see if I actually reviewed that or not. But it got brought up again there, and it was a little bit more expanded upon, which I will get into some other time in the future. But his origins took place in the 60s, and this was done in Vietnam, and we were in the midst of the Cold War and the Vietnam War and trying to stop communism. So Stark was initially kidnapped by the Viet Cong. Here, they actually have a similar setting. However, instead of it taking place in Vietnam, they make this take place more in Afghanistan, and as well as hyping up the basically having the setting more regarding the war against terror and all, which is very well done. They kept the essence and the origins to the T, and as well modernized it and everything to something very relatable. So the origins themselves get a pass. Now let's go into the characters. Now, in my initial review, I stated how Robert Downey Jr. hit the character of Tony Stark not only out of the park, but he improved on the character compared to the comic book counterpart. You see, Iron Man was based around Herbert Hughes and everything, and basically, he was Herbert Hughes was more of a recluse. Tony Stark was kind of a recluse, but he was a smooth talker, and he was also known to make a quirky one-liner here and there. But Robert Downey Jr. gave him tons of charisma up the yin yang and everything. And while he does come off like a jerk sometimes, he comes off like a likable jerk, right? So we already established that. Here, in addition, we have Terrence Howard playing James Rhodes. Now this was a character that, as much as I liked, I actually misinterpreted his origins. I remember James Rhodes, basically when, well, I'm probably going to go ahead of myself. I should talk about this more in Iron Man 2. You know what? I will talk about that more in Iron Man 2. So, but basically James Rhodes himself, Terrence Howard not only had a better look of James Rhodes, I'm talking about facial features, not complexion, because, Rhodey was black as the ace of spades and everything. But with that out of the way, Terrence Howard got the best friend dynamic and grounding, always trying to ground Tony a lot more and try to be a little more of the voice of reason and try not to have him be as impulsive. And when Tony gets kidnapped actually and goes missing, there's a throwaway line that they say next time you ride with me, but that goes more into Rhodey's origin story about him feeling the guilt of Stark's escort being destroyed when he was supposed to have been flying the helicopter. So we really have Terrence Howard showing how James Rhodes is grounded, but as well he also could cut loose a little bit. You don't see Rhodey cut loose as much, in the comics, because he always has a mission or always has to make sure things get done, And the whole thing with the private jet with him drinking the sake at the chicks dancing, you got to see Rhodey cut loose, which is awesome. Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts is a mixed bag for me. Yes, she was an assistant and she was a love interest, but she wasn't the predominant love interest. She was one of Stark's main assistants, but Stark's biggest assistant was Happy Hogan. And it was Happy Hogan and Pepper Potts that ended up getting married. And basically, the romance between Stark and Pepper happened after their divorce, And with Pepper being the CEO and everything, it was actually pretty cool because I found out that she does become the CEO later, but she was always in a high position of power, which is cool. But, they really kind of forced the whole romance on. Well, made it very clear that there was romantic chemistry between them, and that was a major factor of the character in the movie. So I'm a little hesitant with that. Obadiah Stane, wow, they got the fact that he worked with Howard Stark down. That was great, but and they got the look of him being bald headed. However, they didn't really show Obadiah being the psychological manipulator and everything. They actually had to utilize a device to show that he can manipulate people in a way psychedelically and everything. And, they didn't get to, his cunning and his calculation because he is a huge chess player. So, yeah, the characters, it's 50-50, So basically, I'm just going to say that, as much as they did right, they did a lot wrong. Let's go into the theme of Iron Man. Now, the funny thing is, the original theme of Iron Man in the comics was to be the one person of basically the unidentified capitalist, which was very ironic because he's supposed to be the superhero that the average person was not supposed to identify with nor like. But Iron Man in the comics did something that not many comic book characters did. Iron Man got a lot of ladies reading comic books. Yes, as a playboy billionaire and a handsome rich guy, Iron Man himself, out of the other Marvel characters, had a very more soap opera like feel, and that wasn't really a theme. The main theme was capitalism, and in this movie, you saw the consequences of being a capitalist. Now, I try not to let my political feelings get in the way, but I just gotta say that basically, if you live in the Western democracy and your economy is predominantly capitalism, you are one of the most luckiest people alive, and you should be damn well proud, and you should, and especially if you're in the United States, you should love this country, but you should also be able to be aware of its flaws. And with profiting and like with so much money while causing destruction throughout the world, with Iron Man realizing this actually was tenfold and all. So you saw that how Iron Man himself transformed into someone that was all about himself and realizing the consequences of his actions, and thus he tries to be more accountable for that. So this theme matched up fairly well with capitalism, patriotism, yet accountability. And that was done effectively well. So you adapted the story, great. You got the theme down. You actually got the origin and you modernized it. But when you got the characters right, you really got them right. When you got the characters wrong, you really got them wrong. So overall, I'll have to say that as an adaptation, Iron Man is on point. Agree? Disagree? Drop me a comment below. Give me a like. Follow Token Dave on Facebook or Token Dave 80 on Twitter. Subscribe. Ring that bell so you know when a new video loads. And spread this video out. But until then, this has been Token Dave, the dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by. And I'll catch you guys later.